Hi, I'm Lisa Singer. I am the Senior Director of Event Programming at Media Post, and this is Brand Insider BTS, where I get to pull back the curtain on some of the most influential women marketers today. And with me is Tracey Mason. She is the Senior Vice President of Marketing at Vintage Wine Estates. Hey, Tracey, welcome.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, no, thank you for joining and at a nice time. Congratulations, I hear. I mean, this is a new role, new position, an expanded position. How you feeling?
I'm feeling great. I mean, it's a big role. There's a lot to be done, and I'm filling some pretty big shoes, but thankfully I have a lot of shoes to fill. So I'm excited about it, and I just am really excited about the impact that I can have on this organization and on my team, on the company in general.
Very cool. Well, it's always nice to be, I mean, and also just being a woman in your position and for, a wine brand. I mean, I think that, I mean, obviously you guys do more than just the wine, but I just feel like that must mean something. I mean, I don't think it's something we would have necessarily seen 10 years ago.
Well, I mean, I think the industry is changing. I think most industries, wine included, wine and spirits included, are still very much a male dominated kind of industry. That said, I do feel like marketing in particular tends to attract more women. I mean, when I started years ago, and I don't want to even say how many years ago because I don't want to date myself, but it was many years ago when I started. I was the only female salesperson in the company. I was the youngest by 20 years. So at that point, talk about breaking barriers. There was a benefit, I think, to being young and aggressive in a world of in blonde and blue eyed in a world
Mhm.
of men that I certainly used to my advantage. But what I think was more the success factor was just how hard I was willing to work to make the sale and to connect with the buyers that I was calling on.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's a key thing, what you just said, in the sense that women, and I think especially early on, felt like they had to fill the men's shoes. They had to become that. And I know I've spoken with other women like yourself, successful women who initially tried to become what they thought they should be. And
Mm-hmm.
really, it's about what you said it perfectly, using what your assets are to your advantage and that go-getter attitude and that I have to say East Coast attitude, being from New York. You are me, Boston, but I think that women have learned that that's what you use to make you even better. You don't try to become what the crowd is. You become who you are. You bring your uniqueness to the table.
Mm-hmm. And I do think it's my management style in general is being truly authentic. So, this is who I am. I'm a New Yorker. I'm direct. I'm honest. I'm authentic. Um, but I'm also an inspirational leader that believes in bringing women along with me on
Mhm.
this journey. I mean, my team, my marketing team here at Vintage is probably 70% female. And part of it is what I've inherited, and part of it is what I brought to the table. But the history of VWE really has been about bringing women along in the industry. It really started by Terry Wheatley, who was my mentor for years, and who was the president of Vintage, who recently left to pursue other things. But I mean, she really set the tone, I think, for women leaders in the wine industry. And I was fortunate enough to be mentored under her for many years.
That's wonderful. And well, you mentioned some of your attributes to business, but one thing that I keep seeing, I always do my snooping and looking through your LinkedIn page, innovation keeps coming up. All the position descriptions, it keeps coming up, or renovation, or technology driven. And obviously, that's who you are. You even have talked about it in just the few minutes that we've been chatting. Talk about what that means to you, what innovation means, not just in terms of not for a campaign or something, but just in general as a marketer. And that's what makes you, I think more successful, or makes marketers more successful.
Well, I think being able to experience brands and the way consumers use them is really critical. And I think the fact that I started out in sales, started out carrying a bag and talking to buyers and trying to get a read on consumers, kind of laid the foundation for me for what would later become in my career more of a what I would describe as a consumer focus look at the industry. So what is it as an industry, whether it's wine, spirits, cannabis? What are the white spaces that haven't been addressed that are real needs for consumers? And I think what's super exciting about innovation is that it allows you to exploit those white spaces and in many ways deliver things that you didn't even know that you wanted or needed, um, and do so, I think, in really creative ways. So you take an industry like wine, which could be argued as quite traditional and staid, and then you do things like I did 20 years ago and, release the world's first, reduced alcohol, reduced calorie wine into the marketplace, which at the time people told me I was crazy, right? Now it's like the biggest trend in wine. And so innovation is what gets me up in the morning. It literally is what makes my juices flow. Is like, what is the next big thing, right? And what aren't we seeing because we're just so focused on what's right in front of us? And I think for people like me that have a creative bend that also can be quite analytical, it's a perfect field to go into. And so that's kind of where I went from sales into marketing and into innovation. Was more of like a natural transition, but it's wound up being really what is my magic, which
Yeah.
is innovation and identifying and exploiting trends that have not yet been done so.
Now, I want to back up a little bit. And when you first were starting out, so you mentioned that you were in sales, and which I believe you were in the alcohol industry for sales. And then from there, you went to Diageo. And there you worked a number of years and advanced throughout that. And then went to various wine brands. And you had a short stint or a little bit at a cannabis company, which I definitely want to put a pin in because I want to go back. I want to talk a little bit more about that, but let's then come to where you are at Vintage Wine Estates. So this is the evolution of your career, which I'm curious, when you were first graduating, when you were the senior in college, or even as you were going through school, was that the intent? What were you hoping to become? And then tell me how it evolved to where you are today.
Well, I was going to be an attorney. So I was pre-law, international relations major, which I credit for a lot of, I think giving me a global perspective and I think kind of an evolved point of view as it relates to the world. But I was going to, the truth is, I was going to volunteer for a year with the Jesuit Volunteer Corps after I graduated college. And 2 weeks before I was supposed to leave, my section of that program got canceled. So I hadn't taken the LSAT yet. I was living in my parents' home, which I love my parents, but I did not want to be living in my bedroom, my childhood bedroom, working at the beach. And so I wound up moving back to Philadelphia. I went to college, and I had waitressed my way through college. So I got a job at this really nice restaurant in downtown Philadelphia, and then was promoted from waitress into bartending. And one day, this guy walks in who used to sell us wine, and I would, taste with him. And he says, "Hey, we have a sales position open. You should apply. You'd probably be really good at this." And so I did. And I got the job, and I remember I was making like 21.5, and I was so proud of myself. I think I actually talked them up from 21 to 21.5, and it was, went to Dress Barn and bought my little suit at the time. And so anyway, so it just kind of started. The idea was that I was just going to do it for a little bit and check it out, but I wound up falling absolutely in love with the industry and the culture surrounding the industry, because it's quite Epicurean, and it's a really beautiful culture. So between that and having a natural drive, it just sort of laid the foundation for me to continue to grow in the industry. So I never looked back on law school. I still think I probably would have made a good attorney, but I'm happy not to be one. Especially with how often I have to deal with them, especially on the cannabis side. So it was the right journey for me, but it was a circuitous path, if you will.
Yeah, and it's funny. It's proof that the zigzags, and that everyone sort of mentions them, and what might have at the time seemed like this horrible thing, and it turned out to be the best thing. You just never know where life's going to take you. You just got to kind of keep moving forward, and obviously, that's what you did, and to I would say to well use in your time. Definitely worked out for the better.
I mean, sometimes I can't even believe. I mean, this morning I was driving to my meetings and I'm driving up through Napa Valley and in the morning and the fog is burning off and it's stunningly beautiful and I'm surrounded by vineyards and, with people and friends that I know and all of these different wineries that I'm passing. And I'm thinking, I can't even believe that I live here and this is my life. So I've been very, very, very fortunate in that regard. And God, it is a beautiful place to live.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, when you're saying in school in Philadelphia, I believe you said, would you have envisioned driving down the coast for your everyday job? I mean, when you think about it, these are different, especially when you live in different parts of the states, and you stayed on the West Coast, which doesn't always happen. I think it always, for me, because I've been pretty bi-coastal, I always found that Californians who move east always go back. East Coasters who move west, they miss it, but they don't always go back for various reasons. And I think what you just mentioned is, I mean, aside from the job aspect, it's beautiful in the water and just that kind of thing. So was there ever a thought to be like, I want to go back to the East Coast, or was this a happy time to just be like, you'll go visit, but this is where you want to live?
Certainly never contemplated moving back permanently. I will say that even in very recent weeks, my wife and I have been talking about buying a house on Long Island near my sister, just for the sheer virtue of the fact that my family's still back east, and so as we get older, just being closer to the family has real meaning. Her family's here, so we get to see them often. And so now we're thinking, oh, well, we could have this pretty cool life where we, do summers in New York and spring and fall in California. And so we're working that out. And yeah, I'm really excited about it. Not so much from a cultural point of view. It's more, I think, just embracing who I am and where my family is and wanting that to be a more distinct part of my life than just my career and obviously my family that I've made for myself here.
Yeah, no, I've just been through, which is why I'm back on the East Coast. You just start to think you want to see people, my parents, more often. So I totally get that. I'm curious, just when you first moved, and maybe it's still, what is the one thing you miss most? And I want more, not about people or whatever. I want more about something you needed to get to, whether drink, buy, do in Boston.
Well, I mean, in New York, you mean?
I mean, New York. I'm sorry. Yes, New York.
Although I do love Boston too. My best friend, so I spent a lot of time there. But it is the silly things. It's getting a delicious slice of pizza. It's getting a knish. It's access to clams all the time. This is an oyster culture. The East Coast is a clam culture. So it's always going to be about food for me because I love to cook and I think if you talk to anyone, yourself probably included, the one thing that you miss is sort of those cultural normalities that we take for granted. Like I'm going out for a slice, like yeah. And just being profoundly disappointed when you do that here, comparatively. But beyond that, I think there is a cultural inference in terms of the level of directness you can have, I think, with fellow East Coasters. I mean, when I first moved out here, I was VP of innovation for a huge wine company. And it was shocking to me that people were late for meetings. I couldn't wrap my head around that one, just because everything was so much more relaxed. and B, how easily offended people were, just by something that you and I would say to each other all day long, right?
Mhm.
And I would think about it.
Yep.
Just so I really had to modify my style accordingly. So I miss sort of the directness and the lack of BS that you kind of work with when you're on the East Coast comparatively to the West Coast. Both
I
are good. I just prefer sort of a little bit more,
get
you
right
know,
to the point. Get to the
get
point. No, you don't need to code it a lot, and the whole like sarcasm thing. I tend to be sarcastic, and I had to, as, I'm always saying, I'm only kidding, just a joke,
yeah.
so I totally get that. But mine being from Boston, my missing was Chinese food and Dunkin' Donuts. Those and everyone from Boston, when I moved at that time, we all said, what was the first thing you did? I got Dunkin' Donuts and I went for Chinese food because it's the only junk food Chinese food. Like it's all too healthy in New York and LA. But I get the
Right.
people in New York. So, but well, I want, as I sort of inferred to about what you had been with a company, but with cannabis, you actually co-founded the world's first award-winning alcohol-removed cannabis-infused wine, which is really cool. You call it the House of Saka. And tell me about that in the sense that it was recognized as one of the most innovative, another word that keeps coming up with you. But what made you go from, I mean, helped to create this. I know you were working with another woman who was, I think, had initially started, you can explain, but you went from, even though you were part of, product development, this was your own baby that you were now being a part of. What made you make that change to a, cannabis product as opposed to you had been with wine for so long?
Well, I kind of combine the two, right? Because it's a cannabis infused wine company. But I think that when you're in innovation, you're naturally entrepreneurial, right? Because you're always looking to see, what is the next thing. And what I realized over time is that if you walk down an aisle of any Safeway or liquor store, you're going to see literally like 100 brands that I created that came out of my brain that another company is making lots of money on. And so I was presented this opportunity to co-found House of Saka, along with another East Coaster. She had this idea about doing a cannabis infused wine, but really had no idea how to do it. And so we came together and created this brand. I think we released our first product in the end of 2019. Again, award winning. We were named one of the most innovative companies. We were named the most innovative small company in cannabis last year. We are in the process of getting that company acquired by what we call in the cannabis industry a multi-state operator. So I've kind of, you know, I don't want to say walked away, but I've done what I could with the resources that I had, and it was time to bring it into a company that could really grow and scale, which is, very similar to wine, where they say, in order to make a small fortune in the wine industry, you need to invest a large fortune. Well, cannabis is exactly the same. And so we've partnered with a wonderful multi-state operator, BPOC owned, female founded, that will allow us to take that brand into multiple states in the East Coast, on the East Coast, Southeast, while maintaining our foothold here in California. So it was quite an adventure, not for the faint of heart by any means. But ultimately, when you kind of look at your life and you think to yourself, really, what is my passion? And my passion for, since I was, slinging beer at Red Robin in college, has been food and wine, and coming back to it was always important to me. And so having this opportunity at VWE has been such a tremendous gift because I'm benefiting from the maturity and the experience that I have as a founder of a company. But also I think that entrepreneurial nature never goes away. So I think it's a huge benefit for the company itself because I think like it's my money. I'm not thinking like it's their money. So it kind of changes the dynamic of how you spend money and how you go after certain channels within the marketplace.
Yeah. I'm curious. You talked, how your career came about and just even, not a lawyer. So now here you are. Was there an obstacle? You mentioned when the reason didn't become a lawyer was because something, that you were going for a program stopped. But what was there? Was there a challenge or an impact that you came about that maybe seemed like the worst thing and almost that you might not make it through, or just it almost defeated you, but then you persevered and came through it? Is there a time that you can remember, or one specific at least, that sort of jumps out at you?
I mean, I think most recently certainly would be the cannabis industry. That, as I said, is not for the faint of heart. And the way that the industry has crashed here in California is certainly nothing that was predicted not only by people like myself, but people who know a lot more about it than I do. That we leverage that data and those statistics to drive our business plan. And so it came less from how do we grow and scale to how do we just stay alive, and the tremendous financial drain that becomes on you as an entrepreneur financially is significant. In the wine space, I never, and I founded a couple of other companies in the wine space. Some have worked, some haven't. But what I do know is that I do best when I can be an entrepreneur, an internal entrepreneur, so I can act as if I am running my own company, but I have the support of a large company behind me. And so there was never a point in my career where I wanted to leave the wine industry or the spirits industry for any reason other than to try something on my own, or to really take advantage of what looked to be the next big thing, which was cannabis. Um, and I don't regret one moment of that time in that space, because the truth is, and I would say this even when I was in the C-suite at CannaCraft, which is one of the largest cannabis companies in California, which makes it one of the largest cannabis companies in the world, because California is the largest legal cannabis market in the world. But when I was in the C-suite there, I remember just being so grateful because I was learning every day, and to be a woman with the type of experience to see the world as I have, to have had so many different roles in the CPG, alcohol, beverage space, to be able to learn every single day was truly thrilling, And now where I am with my team, and they're all, younger and excited, being able to mentor and teach is the other side of that, right? Is the other joy that you get from, I think, being a leader, where you can lead by example. And I've done that, and wait, I never did that. And so there's, I think, embracing change, embracing new things, will never ever be a bad thing. Not in my mind.
And as a mentor, is that what you would sound the women coming up, the women wanting to be you? Is that the advice you would give them? What's the key advice? What's that one thing to, I mean, there's obviously a lot of things that go into play, but something that you might say to someone who is just trying to maneuver their way through a very competitive industry?
Well, I think there's a couple of things, right? There's the obvious of be a good human being, because that does go a long way.
Mhm.
The second, I think, would be to be curious. Always be curious. We don't know any. I always tell my team, I'm like, I don't know what I don't know. Tell me what I don't know. Because we all have blind spots that we're not aware of. I think so. I think that being curious, being open to possibilities. I was that person who, if an opportunity came up, I looked at it and I explored it. And if it felt like the right thing, I went for it. And for example, here at BWE, I recently had a very high valued employee who resigned. and because she got another opportunity. And, you know, she is of that age where it's time. And so when she resigned, I was sad to see her go, but I was also proud of her and excited for her, because the reality is, if she doesn't do it now, when is she going to? You know, so keep taking chances, keep taking opportunities, um, you know, and rely on your own resiliency in the event that things go wrong. And so for me, I've kind of always walked through the world with this level of resiliency, knowing that based on my own experience, if I fail at something, you literally just get up and try again. And it's okay, right? And I think some people are so afraid to fail that they never take the chance. And so I think it's be curious, take opportunities, take chances, pay attention, learn from those around you, and plot your own course. It's
Yeah,
work
no,
for
I
me.
think that's wonderful advice. I want to have a little fun here with, okay, so the House of Saka, it is described as a luxury infused beverages. Okay, so what do you look for when you're looking to indulge yourself in something luxurious? Not about cannabis, not about wine, but what to you is that luxury thing to indulge, invest, whatever it may be? What do you go to?
Well, I mean, honestly, luxury for me is time. You know, it is time to myself. It's time to jump on the Stairmaster for 45 minutes and listen to Beyonce. It's, you know, time with my wife, you know, driving with the top down and stopping to get a burger at some place along the road. So I think luxury becomes, I mean, you can have all the things, right? You can have the nice car, you can have the nice house, and yeah, so those are certainly things to strive for. But I really think true luxury becomes about how you're living your life, you know,
Mhm.
and living a luxurious life is one to me that's filled with friends and family and accomplishments, and also, you know, as I know I keep coming back to being a good human, but I do think it's really important. And surrounding yourself with good human beings is truly living a luxurious life. It doesn't have to be that you're making millions of dollars a year. I mean, my friends here in Napa, we always joke that we're fake millionaires because we live the life. You know,
Mhm.
we know every bartender, we know every waiter and every high-end restaurant that people save their whole lives to come and spend a week here, and we do it every single day.
Mhm.
But and that's a luxurious lifestyle, even though we're not wealthy. You know, we're just living our lives in a really Epicurean way, I guess.
Yeah. No, I love that answer. I'm here thinking, you know, massage. Like I'm going for the shallow. But I love
I
that.
mean, I'll take the massage too, don't misunderstand me. One thing you need to think about if you love massages is, you know, when you're in California, actually now Massachusetts is recreational too, but go and buy a THC infused bath bomb or bath salts. Put them in your tub and take a bath. It will change your life.
Really?
It is like getting a 3 hour massage, because the THC CBD is absorbed through your skin, it's absorbed through your mucosa, it's just absorbed in a very different way. So the relaxation that you get from that, on a muscular level, on a cellular level, is better than a massage. So
Wow.
highly recommend it.
I will definitely check that out. Okay. All right. I have to mention about your founder of Saka describes your team of women. She talks about you guys as powerful warriors in all of you. What makes you a warrior? What would be your warrior quality?
I think there's a level of fearlessness that you have. You know, the Saka were a group of female warriors that were said to rule the world and conquered all they desired. So, and
Literally means that.
That's literally what it means.
Okay.
So they were a group of ancient female warriors. Every culture has some version of it. You know, you think about Wonder Woman, you think about the land of the Amazonians, but the Saka were a real tribe based in Persia, you know, in the pre-Christ times. And so it's a real thing. But for me, being a warrior is walking through the world with a level of fearlessness that comes from the knowledge that you can bounce back. You know, that your resiliency ultimately is your secret power. You know, you don't need a golden lasso or whatever. You need resiliency. So when you recognize that you can walk through life without fear, you know, whatever happens, you can bounce back from, with the exception of death, right? Depending on what you believe on that regard.
Well,
But
I guess it depends who you are, but
yeah.
but no,
But there is a level of that, and I think it's important. And I think that's what we need to instill in our daughters and our sons is that, you know, a lot of resiliency comes from walking through the world knowing that you're loved, right? Whether you, like, I know, you know, I knew when I came out in my 20s that my parents were still going to love me, right? So I was able to do that without fear. I know many people who that wasn't the case. So they lived in fear. So finding, you know, finding your tribe, walking through the world knowing you're loved, and will always allow you to figure out how to bounce back from anything.
yeah, no, I think that's great. And one final question. Again, reading all through your LinkedIn page, which was definitely a great read. Um, you talk about breaking boundaries. You're known for breaking boundaries, and you end your about you page saying, I want to say, let's break boundaries together with a little star. So what future boundaries do you plan, or let's say one, keep it brief, one boundary that you plan or hope to break?
Well, I mean, I think there's practical boundaries that I break every day, you know, with my team. My words or my direction to my team is I'm not really here to tell you what to do. I'm here to remove the barriers to you to get to what you need to do, whether that barrier is a person, whether the barriers are process, you know, just breaking that down. Um,
Let's bring it
you
to
know,
the person.
I beg your pardon?
Let's bring it to the personal. Like, so just something that maybe it could be down the line, it could be, but is there a barrier that you're just, this is what you know, you think about, or maybe you're still trying to, you know, you're breaking them all.
Well, gosh, I've not broken them all. I've certainly put cracks in a lot of them. I'm a tenacious little one. You know, I think if I was going to go super broad, it might be being you know, a female CEO of a publicly traded wine company, or publicly traded company in the alcohol space. Being and it being a successful entrepreneur, where I, you know, return shareholder value. Um, and then I think for me personally, like on a more personal level, you know, you know, I'm a lesbian woman married to an Iranian with a Guatemalan son and an Ethiopian daughter. So for me, removing the boundaries around, you know, race and creed is very, very important to me. And it's again how I live my life. So I'm coming at it from a very authentic space. And so, you know, removing the fear and hatred that people have for people that don't look exactly like them or don't act exactly like them is really, really important to me.
That must be the hardest, to have your child come to you with, maybe they've heard something that was not nice, not something, you know, not seeing what they want to see, or they're experiencing something. How do you explain that the world's still good, but then this is, I mean, what do you answer to them or tell them?
Well, for me, I mean, it's about, I know I keep coming back to the same theme, but the theme being fear. You know, people are afraid of what they don't know or don't understand. And, you know, we're fortunate to live in an uber liberal enclave here in Northern California where I don't think that my kids experience the same type of pushback that they might get in other parts of the country, for sure. But just, it's almost like, my mom's pretty religious, and it's like sort of, hate the sin, but love the sinner type of thing. It's more, you know, educate, our responsibility as adults is to educate and to remove that fear. Because the more people know and understand you and how you think and our family and how it acts, and they realize the closer that they get to you, the more like you they are, then that fear starts to go away. And just removing that language from people's vernacular, I think, is important. But with our kids specifically, it really comes down to, it's not about you, honey. It's about them. And, have empathy for them, because they don't have as much experience as you do. They haven't seen the world that you've seen. So have empathy and don't let them push you around.
Yeah, very true. And I think it comes back to also when you said you came out and they know they're loved. And that's
Right.
what it comes, that gives them that strength. Well, Tracey, this has been so awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate talking with you and for you taking the time.
No, it's my pleasure. Thanks. I could have gone on and on.
I know. Actually, I think we went a little long, but I wanted to hear it. So I really appreciate it. And I want to thank you for watching. And as always, if you have a marketer, a woman marketer who you'd like to sort of bring back the curtain on, please let me know who you're interested, and I will do my best. So thanks again for watching. And Tracey, again, thank you.
Thank you. Take care.